have a beautiful family. I really do. Every time I look at this picture hanging in the hallway, that's all I think. Wow, what a good-looking family. It's not a professional family portrait or anything close to that. It's just a picture that my wife, Brianne, took with a selfie camera on her phone. They're in the car on a Saturday afternoon, in between errands that were running while I was at work. The kids are in the back seats, making silly faces. The twins, Riley and Jimmy, are pushing together on each side of their younger brother, Manny. Riley must have been jumping in her seat because her long curly hair looks like it's floating. Manny is using his fingers to make a circle-shaped glasses over his eyes, and Jimmy is making that awful silly face that his mother just can't stand. And Brianne in the driver's seat, holding the phone, is wearing her sunglasses and smirking, as if to say, "Really?" I love that picture so much. I decided to print it, frame it, and hang it in the hallway so I could see it every day. I've missed them so much, and I love them more than anything or anyone I've ever loved before in my life. But as much as I love them, they drive me crazy sometimes. I mean, they really know how to push my buttons. I'm already a light sleeper, as it is. The smallest sounds wake me up in the middle of a deep sleep. Creaking floor, dog barking down the street, AC turning on, or birds chirping outside. Doesn't take too much noise to wake me up, and boy oh boy does this family make noise. Jimmy kicks the wall in his sleep. Riley sleepwalks around the house, and Manny has no comprehension of opening or closing doors quietly. Their voices only have one volume setting, max. Then there's Brianne, who, although she tries, is just not a very quiet morning person. In fact, she's just as loud as the kids most days. And of course, our little Maltese is a barker. He barks at the smallest sounds throughout the night and refuses to go outside to do his business until I'm finally in a good sleep. Now, typically this wouldn't be a big deal, and I don't make an issue out of it. I just deal with it and sleep when I can. Unfortunately, though, my job frequently has me working odd hours, from midnight shifts to weekends and the occasional holiday. And let me tell you, getting a good night's sleep makes a world of difference when you're working 6 12-hour shifts in a row. Likewise, lack of sleep makes a world of difference. You can imagine my astonishment after a coworker turned me on to sleeping with earplugs. As simple as it sounds, I had never thought of it before. At first, the silence was a little unnerving, but it blew my mind how a cheap package of foam pegs could change my life. With the help of those earplugs, I was getting full nights, or days depending on my schedule of sleep. The kids didn't wake me, my wife didn't wake me, and my dog didn't wake me. Apparently, without being able to hear, I'm a pretty hard guy to wake up. On Christmas morning, I woke up to the kids jumping on top of me in the bed. Brianne said they had been shaking me and laughing at how they could move my arms around, and I didn't even budge. Thanks to the earplugs, I didn't have to worry about my beautiful, noisy family waking me up. Now I wish I could hear their voices just one more time. 4 weeks. That's how long it's been since that night. I was on a relatively normal working schedule, so I was sleeping next to Brianne. As per usual, my earplugs were in and I was getting the peaceful night's sleep I had coveted for so long. Still, something stirred me awake in the middle of the night. I was on my left side facing the window. The room darkening curtains let next to zero light in. There's a street light outside that is just far enough away to be visible from my pillow. As bright as it was, the curtains made it look like a dimly glowing orb in the sky. The silence was calming. I slowly turned over to face my wife. It was too dark to see, but I could feel the heat coming off of her. I put my arm around her, but something felt off. She moved her hand to mine and held it just for a moment. I thought to myself she must be laying in an awkward position. The thought left my mind and I drifted back off to sleep. When I awoke the next morning, I felt wet. It was still too dark for me to see much in the room, but there was an awful stench. I took my earplugs out and was surprised by the silence. The dog wasn't barking. The children weren't laughing or running through the house. And Brianne was still sleeping, silently. She was laying perfectly still. Too still. I reached over and touched her arm. She was wet and sticky. Startled, I jumped back in bed and reached over to my lamp and turned it on. I screamed when I saw the sheet soaked black with blood. I too was covered in my wife's blood. I scrambled over to her and turned her body over to face me. Her throat was slit open, all the way across, and her dead eyes gazed at me. I shouted and cried, crawled off the bed, and ran to check on the children. Blood trailed from our room all throughout the house. In each of their beds, I found their lifeless bodies. Their throats had been cut just like their mother's. There was a bloody handprint across each of their faces. After finding Manny, the youngest, I fell to the floor in a fetal position and cried. I wanted to wake up from this nightmare. I didn't believe it could be real, but it was. I picked myself up and left Manny's room. I noticed a bloody lump on the floor at the end of the hallway. It was our little dog. His head had been twisted around and his body had been butterflied open. The feeling in my stomach was so painful, so sickening. I wanted to vomit it out, but I couldn't. I moved back into my bedroom and picked up my phone and called 911. The police were brutal. I was treated like a monster, but I didn't blame them. For a few days, I even thought that maybe I was guilty. During one of the last interrogations, I even asked if I could get the death sentence in a plea deal. I wanted to die to be with my family. But before I could give my confession, the FBI intervened. It wasn't me, they said. They told me they had been tracking the killer for months. They'd finally gotten some hard evidence, they said. They were close to him. They found a cache of VHS tapes the killer had left behind. He recorded the murders with an old VHS camcorder. It was the same MO with all the murders, they said. He kills the pets and children first, because they make the most noise. Then he sets the camcorder up before killing the mother, covering her mouth with one hand, slicing open her throat. The movement and noises wake up the father, but the killer is always anticipating it. But something went wrong at my house that night. I was the first survivor. They showed me part of the tape, positioned at the foot of the bed. I saw him on top of my wife, cutting her open. Then he sat still and watched me sleep. I hadn't heard anything. I hadn't woken up. Then he laid down on top of my wife. I watched my body begin to stir, but he remained motionless. I saw my arm lift up and over on top of him. I remembered holding her hand that night, but it wasn't hers. It was the killer's. I don't know if they'll catch the killer, and I don't care anymore. I only want to be with my family and that photo on the wall. As I type these final words, my hands are shaking, and my eyes are bouncing between the photo and my pistol. I'm leaving this place to be with my family. I can hear them laughing and playing. The dog is barking and Brienne is calling for me. I'm going to an eternal sleep. No earplugs necessary. Number 2. How does this story begin? With me, moving into my new apartment, of course. It's a little bit cliche when I think about it now. Guy moves into his new apartment. Strange things start to happen. You know, the typical horror story. And I'm realizing again that mine isn't that different from this concept. Well, at least I'm still alive. What I'm asking for is help. That's all. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. The complex itself isn't that menacing or anything. It's just a typical house. A typical and normal complex, just right for somebody who was finally finished with that school crap. Getting to some money wasn't easy. I had a job at some fast food restaurant. I don't know the name, and I don't really care. When I was finally in possession of a decent amount of money, I started looking for a new home, away from the strict rules of my mother, and I found one surprisingly quick. The price wasn't too high, but not too low either. So I made myself at home, which means clothes and other stuff all over the place. I'm not the tidiest person in the world, but hey, I was finally free. I don't have to tell you about all the different rooms, that would just be a waste. What I should tell you though is that I lived on the first floor, directly above the basement of the apartment building. The neighbors were nice too. There was first a pretty attractive woman living next to me. She was nice, but she had a boyfriend, who sometimes visited her, and it was annoying. It was hatred at first glance. Then there's the alcoholic. He's a decent guy. That means I don't hear anything from him most of the time. Now the last neighbor is the old lady living right in front of my apartment. I tell you, she snaps at any noise I make here. She was also the first one I came across when I first got to the place. You're the new kid who just moved in here, right? she said, standing in front of her apartment door, as if she was waiting for me. Ah, yeah, that's me. How do you know? Word spreads quickly here. Who knows, maybe you won't bail so quickly like the ones before you did. And with that, she was gone, leaving me puzzled by her last words. What did she mean? Was something wrong with my apartment? Maybe it was just too old. No, it wasn't. It was something different entirely. The first day went by completely normal. In the evening, I grabbed some liquor, made myself comfortable on the couch, and watched some TV. Still nothing out of the ordinary. I got in my bed and slept. Shortly after, I was awakened by knocking. I went to the door wondering who would be out so late, only to realize that the sound got quieter the more I walked away from the bedroom. Somebody was knocking on the ceiling of the basement. What the hell was that? I got out of my apartment and went down the stairs after I quickly ended the conflict with the old lady, who complained about the footsteps and creaking door. I'm wondering if she just sat in front of the door waiting for a noise she could complain about. As I got to the basement, the knocking stopped. There was nothing. Besides, how could somebody have gotten up there? I must have imagined it, I thought. Well, once I was in bed, again the knocking continued. It continued the whole night. Once I got to the basement again, nobody was there. I didn't get any sleep that night, and more nights to follow. The whole rest of the week I was exhausted and annoyed by that continuing knocking. Knock, knock, knock. It got so bad I almost drifted off at work. My boss asked me if I was all right, and I lied to him about a creaking bed. He wasn't much help, he just joked to sleep on the floor then. I spoke to the landlord, but he just brushed it off and told me that I was just imagining things. I slept at a friend's place the next few days. Once he kicked me out, I was back in my own personal hell again, and once again I was robbed of my sleep by that knocking sound. God, I had enough of it. I asked the woman next door, "Hey, sorry for the disturbance, but do you hear that knocking at night? Or is it just me?" "No, I don't." Weird, the guy who lived here before had the same complaints," she said in a surprised tone. "Wait, so that's why he went?" Actually, he ran from the apartment screaming that it was too much for him. He was found dangling from a rope later that night. The same fate most people had in that apartment. Did nobody tell you that? No. Shit, why did no one ever tell me this? I was confused. "Oh, sorry, my boyfriend's calling. Good luck. Bye." She closed the door and left me alone in the hallway. And that was all until now. I'm sitting on my bed right now writing this story. I'd like some advice from you. Maybe tell me what to do. I can't move out of this apartment. I just can't afford to buy another. And there's the knocking again. I'd like some answers as soon as possible. Please. Oh shit. The basement doesn't have a room under me. It's just a small room. How? God, how was I so stupid? But didn't I realize this? But how is this? Oh no. Oh, it's under my bed, isn't it? Fuck! What's that noise? Shit, whatever is under my bed it's laughing. It knows that I know. What am I gonna do, damn it? Help me, please. I can feel it moving underneath me now. Oh God, please help. I hope you guys all enjoyed those 2 stories. Please make sure to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Sinful Society. And to a very special subscriber, Kristen, hang in there. I know things are bound to get better soon for you. Take care, and don't give up the good fight. Until the next video, guys, stay sinful.